I'm Allison, and this is Dream Anyway, a podcast for those of us who feel the pull to create, even when the path isn't clear. So wherever you are in your journey, grab a coffee, get comfy, and dream anyway.
Hi, I'm Caleb Stapp. Thanks so much for having me on your show today.
And what do you do?
I'm a financial advisor, ex-pastor, ex-politician, full-time father of 5, and pickleball player. So a variety of things. Yes, ma'am.
And so an ex-pastor and ex-politician?
Yes, ma'am.
Are those good things to be exes of?
Those aren't as in those were bad things. I just love that whatever conversation people are most uncomfortable having, whether it's politics, faith, or money, I'm ready for it. I'm good. I'm ready to jump in.
When did you get into the financial industry?
It was 2019. I had been pastoring for about 10 years at that point. And over the last, from like 2016 through 2019, I had been part-time. And so as I scrounged around, at one point I had 8 different W-2 jobs in 1 year, just doing everything I possibly could to feed, at that point, 3.5 kids. And my financial advisor pointed out that was not working. It was not working at all. We were not going into debt. My wife is very thrifty. I'm the spender in the family, but we weren't going anywhere else either, except maybe a little crazy. So 2019, he says, Caleb, pastors, teachers, people with that kind of people mentality, they do really well in this role. We'll teach you about the money and you can have I think this would work well for you. And so eventually 6 months later, it takes a while to get going, joined that role with a big firm and was there for 4 years and turned out to be great. Very surprising to me and everybody else.
So now are you on your own?
Yes. So last March went independent and now I own my own practice, which really allows me a lot more freedom in my time with my family, but B, now I'm building something for myself, which is huge, of course.
Are you more thrifty now or no?
No, my wife is still the thrifty one, but we do better now financially for a couple of reasons. One is because I see people's finances all the time, it has made me much more self-aware of my own kind of the financial motivations and why I want to spend money, which is really important. And then it also helps me to see the real life implications of certain behaviors, right? And so that has made me more cautious and a little bit more conservative. And then there's also more money. So it's a lot easier to live life if your income is up a little bit higher.
Right.
We were below the poverty line for about 10 years in that role. And that was really hard. That was really hard. So
I have struggled with money my whole life and almost lost my house once and filed bankruptcy a couple times. I mean,
that's hard. It's hard.
Finances are hard.
They're hard for everybody. What you just described is so true of almost everybody. Your best friend could be broke or your best friend could be a millionaire and there might not be any visible signs either direction.
Right.
And that's one of the most interesting and challenging things about my job is that if I'm talking to somebody and they express any interest and they want me to tell them more about what I do and how I might help them, I have to approach it from the standpoint of they may be really broke and I may not be able to help them in that way. I have some financial coaches I refer them to, or they may have a ton of money and they may need my help with the style of help I can provide. And there's no way for me to tell until they actually send me paperwork that shows what the heck is going on. It's really challenging for a lot of people. Our struggles never improve until we open up because we're the people that got us in the mess we're in.
What do you tell somebody? You feel like you can't get out of it. So, but you're saying that there's financial coaches that could help you, like Dave Ramsey kind of thing?
There's a variety of tools that people can use from free to paid that can make a tremendous difference. I often recommend Dave Ramsey's books and different things. And for folks that don't like the way he yells at people, I often recommend his daughter, Rachel Cruz, because she's a lot nicer. It's exactly the same advice, but she's a lot nicer. And so it can come across in a much more friendly way. So resources like that, or perhaps if there's enough income and enough resources to pay somebody, $100 or $200 a month, I know financial coaches that are available to people in that price range. and they do tremendous work. And then there's free options. Like even there's other kinds of groups. The ones I'm most familiar with are the Dave Ramsey groups. There's a small cost, but they're very manageable. And then you're in a group of people who are all in the same boat. You're all learning together. And it's a heck of a lot of work, but it's fairly simple, straightforward work. People say that money can't buy happiness. And at a certain point, it can't. But there are really good studies to show a couple of things. One is that there is a direct correlation between life satisfaction, happiness, and the amount of money we make. And that direct correlation lasts until somebody makes around $60,000 to $80,000 in America. Because if you make $75,000 a year in America, your basic needs are covered. You may not have the fanciest of everything, but you can have a house and a car, and you can probably do a week of camping, right? You've got a basic vacation. And so after that point, more money doesn't necessarily buy more happiness. The correlation goes away. Up until some of the basics are met, yeah, it's a huge stressor. It leads directly to all sorts of kinds of anxiety and mental health issues. And so that's a really important thing for people to know, that sometimes you can't play better defense, i.e. trying to keep the money in the bank. You have to figure out some way to play better offense too, to increase your income and keep the income from just leaving. No sports team ever won on just offense or defense. You have to use both. It's challenging.
You were a pastor and a politician, and I assume those things came with dreams. That's the point of the podcast. And now maybe you have another dream to help people, or were all three of those to help people? What is your dream now, and how did it vary between those things?
I love that. No, there's a very strong theme in my life of wanting to make an impact on people, particularly groups of people. And whether it's speaking the language of faith and helping people get in touch with who God is, which is still very important to me, or the language of how do we as a community work together better, which is all politics is. Or maybe it's the language of money to say, hey, how do I get the resources I need in my life to do the things that matter with the people that matter to me? All of those are about making an impact on people. And so I know that whether it was as a pastor, if I'm helping, let's say, a father, just by walking alongside of him, change some generational patterns in how he parents and what happens with his kids, decades and generations will go by. And that family could be forever changed by what God does through me in that situation. Not my skill, but God's work through that. The same thing is absolutely true in the money space. I can work with some grandparents and their grandkids will never know my name, but maybe that's why they get to go to college. Or maybe that's why they get that little bit of help with the first home down payment or whatever it is that just gives them that edge that sets them up for success in such a holistic way. And those people don't have to know who I am, but I still love knowing that that impact is possible. And occasionally I get to see it, right? And that's really fun.
Was pivoting hard?
It was very challenging.
How would you suggest somebody who has to go through a major pivot in life? What can you offer them?
Desperation helps. When what you're doing really, really, really isn't working and you've tried that for a couple of years, the desperation can drive you to say, okay, well, this is obviously not what's going to happen in my life. Let's try something else. And a lot of things make sense once you get to the point of, you know what, if I don't do this, this is going to be a big problem. And I think that also relates back to the folks that are feeling if they're really struggling with finances. I would just point out, you don't have to forever. And once you get sick of it, you finally get the help. And it'll be years, but you finally get the help and start on that path towards making a difference. And that pivot is really hard because you have to learn new things and you have to become a new person, really, right? We don't want to just change a few outside habits. We really want to be the kind of person that likes having a savings account. We want to be the kind of person that plans for the future. And that's hard. It's hard to make that pivot, but desperation is, at least in my life, it's been a real key.
I know the money is so hard to talk about. For me, this is true, but do you think there's shame?
Yes.
Is that what's keeping us from it?
shame and fear of what other people will really think. And that's where counselors, attorneys, financial advisors, they're basically professional friends with a specific area of expertise.
Yeah.
Right. And so sometimes if the expertise doesn't manifest in our friend circle, then we go pay somebody and then we get the help we need.
Do you think that what you considered maybe failures at the time are no longer failures and all to get you to this lovely point?
Yes and no. There's parts where I look back and like, well, no, that was just pain and trouble. But yes, as well, I have a very good friend who hired me in 2019, and I worked for him for, I think, a total of 5 months, selling advertising for a newspaper. He taught me things in those 3 or 4 months that I still use today and made a pretty big difference in my life for a part-time, couple-hour-a-week job, right? That's one of the things I scrambled through at that time in my life. And yet I used it. Not so much now, but especially the first couple of years of building my business, I used stuff every day that he taught me, kind of incidentally. He knew it, I didn't. And so that was one way that one of those experiences really impacted me.
They lead us anyway to where we are.
Mm-hmm.
Well, how do you define success if not financial?
That one's challenging.
Mm-hmm. What does success look like to you? What do you hope at the end of the day?
Sometimes I have to create checklists so that I can have some feelings of short-term success, right? Because so many times as business owners, we've got to do the things that will matter in a year. They don't matter today, but if we don't do them, they'll hurt us. And so there's a sense of creating a sense of success. But at the end of the day, when I'm at home working, I stand up, I look over at a little script I have pasted on my desk, and it says, I'm God's child. I've worked enough for today. My family, my health are more important to me than this job. I'm getting up and going home. And so part of success is just focusing on the priorities, not perfectly, but consistently saying some things are more important than others. That by itself will be a success because whatever you pay attention to flourishes, right? When we direct our focus towards it, it gets better. And these days, one measure of success is how much time I spend on things. So I work really hard to keep my hours in the business at a certain amount each week. So that frees up my time to do other things with other people, friends, kids. And so that's one measure of success is where is my time going?
Yeah, I really love that. That's a great answer. Thank you. What do you want your eulogy to be? What do you want your kids to be thinking about you once you pass?
I want them to be continuing the impact that I hope I had on them.
In what way?
In welcoming people. Hospitality is really important. Helping them connect with people that aren't connected to others and being a bridge between people. I really hope that they continue doing that. And I hope that then they take that sense of, hey, we are here for a purpose. God has something for me. I don't necessarily have to spend all my time navel gazing, trying to figure out what that special purpose is. But I should have a bias towards action where I move towards others and move towards helping others in a significant way, where I'm looking to make an impact. And I hope they learn to do things in a really thoughtful way. I want them to live reflective lives instead of just reactive.
All of that is very beautiful. That's all the things you want for your kids. But what do you want your kids to think about you?
I want them to realize that I changed over my lifetime, that the dad that they had when they were 10 was not the dad that they had when they were 20 or 30. Because if they can look back and see growth and change in my life, I think of very specific instances in my dad's life where I have seen him change. And that is such a blessing to realize, wow, hey, this got better. There's some goodness here. And I would love for them to see that and value that, be thankful for that.
I love personally that we can change and that it's possible. Because for a long time, I don't think I knew that. I thought, well, this is who I am. Everybody knows me to be this. How can I just come out and be something different? But when you genuinely do change, when you genuinely grow, you don't have to convince anybody that you're different. You just are different.
Last year of starting my own business, we had some very stressful things happening in life that really formed us in some new ways. And my pastor said this to me because we're friends, of course, as well. He said this in person. And then once he actually said it to the church as a whole, he said something about, yeah, I like Caleb a lot better now. I used to like him, but I like him a lot better now. And I like myself a lot better now.
Yeah. The woman that I am now is nothing like even the 30-year-old, the 40-year-old, maybe even the 50-year-old. I love talking about change because I love the woman I've grown into and that I continue to evolve into.
I would recommend people at least check to see if they need financial therapy. This is not something I do, but it's something I listen for in client stories. And then sometimes we will use some other tools to help us dig into it a little bit. But I think the power of people feel really stuck in their money. Sometimes it's because of something completely outside of money. The way we show up to our lives because of past trauma or shame can affect so many random parts of our lives. And it's everything, right? And so I think people, if they're really feeling stuck, maybe see a financial advisor, maybe Google what is a financial therapist, maybe ask ChatGPT or somebody, say, ask me some financial therapy questions and let me respond. And see, there have been one or two times where in a client conversation, there's been something obviously non-financial that is stopping somebody from living their best life. And we've actually gone into that space together. And then I've been able to bring this client. So financially, they should make this great decision. They should get this new kitchen, spend a lot of money on some things to improve their life. But they could. Financially, the math question was easy, but they wouldn't do it. And so we went into that space and talked through it and talked about what they were saying inside their heads to themselves and what they could say, and date night, discussion points with their spouse, and all these different things to try to help them get to that point where they could spend the money that they already had on enjoying life. And so I would say just that there is help out there. Sometimes you have to keep searching. Sometimes a traditional financial advisor talking about investments is the least helpful thing in dealing with your money. And so keep checking. There's different silos out there and there's different worlds out there where some of these things are brought together. And it's really cool to see people get the help that they need so then they can move forward. And 10 years from now, they'll be that different person that's more enjoyable to themselves.
What would you say to your 20-year-old self? How old are you now?
I'm 36. I'm not sure I would say anything because he definitely wouldn't listen. My 20-year-old self, oh boy.
What do you wish you had done differently?
I wish he had learned to breathe. I learned to breathe last year. That was really good. I wish I had learned that some of the ways I was showing up in the world could be better and that I could learn and grow through that. I think I just thought, you grow up and you think, well, this is the way it is. This is who I am. And you don't quite have to be quite like that. Mm-hmm. And my 20-year-old self was really arrogant and selfish, probably a bunch of other things, but those two stand out. And so if he could learn to be a little bit more humble, a little bit more thoughtful, others, a lot of pain from the 20s and early 30s could have been avoided.
Thanks for listening. New episodes drop every Thursday.